I used to think that investing was hard, boring, or complicated, but I found the perfect stock investing course that showed me how to invest as a complete newbie. Now I can build wealth in the stock market and do all the things that I enjoy at the same time. Check out the Lazy Investor Stock course and get started on your wealth building journey today.
Everybody, let me know you can hear me. David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. Appreciate you coming through early morning. We're going to go ahead and get to it, and we're going to get up on out of here, right? So what we're talking about is why Trump can't cancel the SNAP food program and the bid-ask spread, right? So what we saw yesterday was, Trump continuing to, streamline the government, continue to try to make the government go more lean, yada, yada, yada. And it came through that Trump was going to cancel. It's really not Trump. It's really the administration was going to cancel certain programs. One of those is going to be the SNAP program. We're going to talk about why that can't take place. But most importantly, we're going to talk to people about their critical thinking ability. So the biggest question you want to ask yourself is, or really understand, is that most people can't think that well. And it doesn't mean that people are dumb. It doesn't mean that people are stupid. It means they've been socialized to not think that well because the society that we have created doesn't demand that you need to think that well. And many people can't think as well as they think they can think. And a really good indication of that is if you look at what the Chinese have done with DeepSeek, ask yourself why the people that you thought could think so well can't do that. Right? Ask yourself that. And we're going to get a little bit deeper into that later on. But something I've been telling Black programmers and Black people in the tech space for years is you need to focus on solving problems, because many people in the tech space are highly paid vocational workers. And there's nothing wrong with being a vocational worker, and there's nothing wrong with being highly paid. But there's a level of problem solving that they have not been exposed to because they have not been trained to solve problems at a certain level. Well, if you're looking at the DeepSeek program, it is a solution to a problem, right? That's really what that is. That is a solution to a very large problem. And I think that's going to miss a lot of people because they haven't really been taught how to think that well around particular issues. Again, it's not to say people are stupid. It's not to say people are dumb. What I'm trying to help people understand is that they are the result of an education system that's designed to program you to only be able to think past a certain level, because they don't need you to think past that level, because that's not your role in society. And thinking is often more than just being able to regurgitate trivia, being able to regurgitate information, or being able to take what somebody else tells you and you just repeating it. So often people will come to me and ask me a question. What I'm trying to do is help them think about the problem where they can start to develop their own answer. It's not about me just telling you what it is. Because if that's all you do, then if something happens to me, you can't solve your problems anymore. So the goal is to help you look at this situation and start to ask yourself questions in a manner in which you can come to a conclusion, and then you can determine in the real world whether or not this conclusion actually makes sense, right? So what we're going to talk about first is the bid-ask spread before we go into the issue with Trump and yada, 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 right? So let's talk about the bid-ask spread. So the first question you want to ask yourself is, we're talking about options because primarily this is a options trading platform, finance econ platform. Have you ever been to an auction? So many people, when they come into the options space, one of the reasons why they struggle in understanding certain situations is because they've never been to an auction. And they're used to a retail environment to where the price is set. And then what I do is I determine whether or not I want to pay that price, right? And that's really how things are in the West, where you go to your grocer, they say, hey, it costs $10 to buy it. If you don't want to pay the $10, you don't pay it. If you do, you pay it. What you see in the markets is they're based on an auction scenario where we set a price and then you determine whether or not you want to bid at, over, or under that price, right? And then based on what we can get for it, that's close enough to what we set for it, determines whether or not we decide we're going to sell it. Okay? So that's what I want you to understand, is that you would want to go research, if you've never been to an auction before, how auctions actually function. Because when we start looking at options chains, if we don't understand how auctions function, then when we're looking at the options chain, we don't really understand what's going on. So let me give an example of what I mean. So we're looking at Apple options, right? They expire on the 7th of February, right? So this is the ask and this is the bid. So they're asking for $550 and they're bidding $540, right? So there's really a $10 difference between the two. So that's what we would call a relatively tight spread. What they're asking for and what is being bid on it is relatively tight, right? So if I step into this particular auction for this contract, I may be able to bid $545 and get the contract because I'm only 5 cents off what they're asking for. Now I may be able to get it for $540, but I may be able to get it for $545. Maybe able to get it for, if my platform allows it, for $546, $547, whatever. But I want you to understand is that you want to learn as an options trader how to manage the bid-ask spread, because just because they ask $554, it doesn't mean that that's really what they'll sell it for. It just means that may be what they're asking for. And also, when you start to understand that if you see options being bought above the ask, it means that there was a lot of intent to force their way into that market, which means that they have a lot of confidence in that market. So if I look at an option scanner and I see that somebody bought the 237.5 calls and they paid $570 for them, and they bought $10 million worth of those calls, it means that they're very, very confident of this particular move of Apple being at 237 or higher before this particular expiration date. But I have to know what it means when somebody says they bought above the ask, right? So as a result, then I have to understand what this bid-ask spread means. And as an options trader, we're normally going to be buying on the ask and selling on the bid. So what does that mean? I'm normally going to be buying around $550, but I'm normally going to be selling around $540. So what that means is that if the spreads are really wide, I'm going to have to be forced in on the ask or around the ask, but I'm only going to be able to sell around the bid. That can hurt you when you go back into the market. So what do I mean? So we're looking at Mercury General, right, which is an insurer out there in California. A lot of people think they're going to be negatively affected by the fires, right? So on the March 21st, 2025 calls, on the $50 strike, we got a $650 ask and we got a $520 bid, right? So it's $520 that they're bidding, but it's $650 on the ask. So, and there's also not a lot of liquidity on this particular chain, right? But that's a whole nother conversation. So if I'm buying this contract, I'm going to buy it $650. When I go to sell it, I may have to sell it around the $520. So even if it goes my way, I could still lose on the contract. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? So you want to notice, because what can happen, and you'll see this with these type of options, where you'll go to buy it, right? And what they'll do is they'll move up the ask. And then when you go to sell it, what they'll do is they'll bring down the bid. And that's being done by an algo. And so you got to really be, I would say, up to speed or aware of what's going on when you see these type of spreads on a contract. Okay? Because you got to just subtract 650 minus 520. What's the difference between those two numbers? That's the actual spread between the bid and the ask. You're going to have to fall in somewhere between that. But normally when you go to sell it, you're going to fall closer to the bid side than to the ask side. Okay? So these are the things that you want to understand as an options trader, because what you don't want to do is put yourself in a position to where even if you get the results you want, because the spreads are so wide, when you go to exit and go back into the market, you're having to take a big haircut, even if you got the implied move that you were looking for, because there's nobody really there to really tighten up those spreads. So as a trader, what we're looking for, especially as a beginning trader, what I would recommend to you, even though I can't give financial advice, is I would recommend that you look for a market that is very liquid and people are very enthusiastic. So let me give an example. If I go into a real estate market and I buy property at whatever price, but nobody's looking to buy the property from me, right? I may have to either sit on the property or take a haircut just to get out of the market. Okay? Because just because you put a property up for sale doesn't mean somebody wants to buy it. It just means it's up for sale. Right? So if I go into a real estate market somewhere and that market, nobody's really looking to buy in that market, but I buy into the market, right? I hold the property for 2 years. Nobody's still looking to buy into the market. It doesn't mean I'm going to be able to sell at a profit, right? It doesn't matter what remodels I did. It doesn't mean, because there's nobody really looking to come into this market. So as an options trader, when you're jumping in positions and there's really nobody on that position with you, And a lot of times that one of the characteristics of that is that the spreads are going to be very, very wide, right? When you look to leave that market, you may have to take a haircut just to get out of the market. And you want to understand that. Therefore, it doesn't always matter that you want to be in the play. The question is, do the conditions around the play make sense for you to be in that play? Because until you get probably a little bit more experience, I would counsel you against going into what we call illiquid markets, or markets that you don't have a lot of liquidity. There's not a lot of money running through that particular market because you may not understand how to get in and out of that market. And one thing you got to understand, the market makers will move those spreads on you, right? So you'll see a spread being listed in your account, but then when you go in, they'll move it. And then when you go to leave, they'll move it again. And you'll see big gaps on the spreads, right? So until I would get a lot of experience in the market, I would stay away from wide spreads. I call wide spreads anything greater than $10 for a beginner. I've been trading for a good amount of time. I can manage wider spreads because I know what they're going to do to them. But until you go through it, you really don't know how that spread's going to move. And they will move the spread on you. And you'll be very, very surprised because you're thinking you're going to make X amount of money, but you're really not because you haven't managed that spread properly. So anybody got any questions on that, put it in the chat. We're going to move on to the next topic before we get up on out of here. So let's talk about SNAP and Trump cutting these particular government programs, everybody going into a panic, yada, 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 this, that, and the third. Okay, so SNAP is like a food program for people inside the United States. Sometimes you have federal, you also have state. Where I'm from, we used to call it WIC. I don't know what happened to WIC. I don't know because I don't really keep up with these food programs because I don't qualify for any of them. But where I'm from, we used to call it WIC. They might have got rid of WIC. Everybody know about food stamps. If you're old enough, you remember physical food stamps. Some of y'all too young. All y'all know is the cards. I remember the actual physical food stamp and the cards. They came up with the actual card because people are selling the physical food stamps. It didn't matter because once they created the cards, people learned how to sell the cards too. Right? There was a whole marketplace designed around giving people access to these particular food programs, right? Using whatever. Okay, AKB say WIC still around. Say, I don't know. Like I said, I just know WIC because I don't qualify for none of it anyway. But I come up, it was WIC and food stamps. Then they start talking about SNAP. I ain't know none of this stuff, right? So there was a lot of noise yesterday about Trump getting rid of SNAP. And so I want you to understand something because a lot of what we're going to see over the next 2 to 3 years is designed to keep you into a state of fear. And again, it's going around people not really being able to think properly. So even if you're not familiar with all the ins and outs of SNAP because you don't qualify for it or that's not your particular space, if we start thinking critically because we understand business and we understand economics, we can understand the probability of these things going away the way in which people say they're going away. So let me give you a situation, right? If you understand SNAP, we understand that Walmart captures around 26% of SNAP grocery spend. Okay. So in this particular SNAP program, Walmart, which is a major corporation inside the United States, is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. From this particular blue book, which is a particular retail or insider publication for the produce industry, May 18th, 2023, they have that Walmart captures 26% of SNAP grocery spend. Here's the whole write-up. They talk about SNAP, Target, Whole Foods, Publix are less vulnerable to SNAP benefit declines. SNAP households favor Sam's Club over Costco. We know our Sam's Clubs are still Walmart. SNAPs are less likely to purchase groceries on Amazon. There's a whole write-up on SNAP. They give you the numbers, yada, yada, yada. Okay? Here's the next thing you want to look at, policy basics. About $107 billion or 94% of SNAP spending went directly to benefits that households use to purchase food. So we know that Walmart gets 26% of SNAP spending, right? This almost 30% of SNAP spending just goes to Walmart, which means they get almost a third, right? And about $107 billion or 94% of SNAP spending went directly to benefits of households that use to purchase food. Because what I was looking for is that based on how big the SNAP program is, how much actually goes out for people to buy food and how much is administrative cost, right? Because the narrative that they're going to give out is we trying to cut administrative costs, but only 6% in 2023 went to state administrative costs and 1% went to federal administrative costs. So the large amount of the program is actually being given to people to buy food. Okay, but I wanted to know that because I want to know how much of that $107 billion is Walmart capturing. That's what I wanted to know. Okay, so here's the questions that you want to ask yourself when looking at this particular situation, right? How much commercial real estate is designed to support SNAP benefits? So we know that Walmart, right, is getting 26% of SNAP benefit. Walmart is commercial real estate. And if you look at how most Walmarts are rolled out, they normally anchor that commercial real estate footprint, right? So there's normally going to be like some type of strip mall. Every place is different, but normally Walmart is out in some type of strip mall environment. They normally anchor it. Sometimes there's more than one thing in it, but like I'm from Orlando, we do have some Walmarts where the only thing in that particular location is the Walmart. And I'm talking about a super Walmart with a grocery store. How much of commercial real estate nationwide is designed to support SNAP benefits? And what I mean by that is that they're designed to support a grocery store that is involved in the SNAP program. That's a question I'm asking you, the audience, right? Just how much do you think? 30%, 20%, 50%, 60%? These are kind of questions you want to ask yourself, right? Next thing. What happens to commercial real estate value if SNAP gets pulled as a program? So if they pull SNAP as a program, but we have a commercial real estate footprint that's designed to support SNAP, what happens then? Because the commercial real estate values are based on, right, these particular commercial real estate malls or commercial real estate, I forgot what you call them, being able to support this particular program. So if I have a grocery store and it is anchored by, I have a commercial real estate strip mall, it's being anchored by a grocery store. That particular grocery store, right, it participates in the SNAP program. That SNAP program brings in a certain percentage amount of money to that grocery store. We cut the SNAP program out. That grocery store no longer gets, right, those SNAP benefits to flow through that particular store from a revenue standpoint. As a result, they close up and move away, right? So now, why do we still need commercial real estate there? So that's what I want you to understand is this idea to where you can pull some of these programs. We've built infrastructure and we built whole business models around receiving these benefits. So it'll be an indicator of something else going on if now we have to cut this type of benefit. Now, I'm not saying these benefits can't ever be cut. I believe a lot of these entitlements will one day be cut, but it'll be speaking to something larger than just they're cutting the benefit. Because then what will happen as a result is if we cut SNAP, what happens to Walmart revenues? Walmart is a multi-billion-dollar organization. They're a Fortune 500 company, right? They're a massive business in this country. What happens to Walmart revenues if SNAP gets cut? So do you think Walmart's going to just be cool if SNAP being cut unless SNAP has to be cut? How many other food producers are producing food that is part of the SNAP program? So let's talk about some of the cereal producers. How many of the cereal producers are producing food that's part of the SNAP program? So if SNAP gets cut, what happens to their revenues? Right? I don't know what else is in SNAP. I don't know. Is baby food in SNAP? I don't know. Like I say, I'm not included in the program. But looking at food producers, how many food producers are producing food that's in the SNAP program? What happens to their revenues if SNAP gets cut? Therefore, when we understand it from this particular standpoint, and we don't get caught up in the hype, but it's because of our ability to understand how to think properly about certain situations, we don't just get caught up in this stuff. But because we haven't really been trained, in my opinion, to think a certain way about certain issues, the headline catches us. We not going back and forth with arguing with somebody on the internet. But the question is, Walmart makes X amount of money per year off SNAP. Why would they allow that to get cut off their balance sheet? Right? Why would they allow that? And so this is why we often show up in situations and we just kind of get thrown down a rabbit hole because we haven't really thought about this properly. And a lot of people are just rage baiting us on the internet because that's how they make their money. But there is no ability to really show us how to actually think properly. And some people don't want to think properly. They don't care, right? Because we made the world so easy. Well, for a lot of people, they can think like a grade schooler and still have a life, right? But this is really for people that want to kind of understand, how can I think a different way? Because when you go into certain marketplaces and when you're interacting in certain spaces, if you can't think at a certain level, and I mean actually think, not just do task, it can be detrimental to your situation, your ability to be successful. So when we're looking at these particular Dodge and they're going to cut this and they're going to cut that, there's no way they can cut those trillions out of the budget. It's not possible. A lot of it is fear factor. It's designed to scare you. What I want to really try to get you to understand is that the way you really solve problems for you and your group is when you have to want to solve the problem. You have to be willing to do what it's going to take to solve the problem, but you got to be able to think your way through the situation. And a lot of this stuff, if we really sit back and really think about how it actually is structured, you'll realize it really don't make a lot of sense. It's just headlines, it's news, yada, yada, yada. It's something for people to talk about, but it's not going to add up to anything at the end of the day. Okay? So anybody got any questions before we get up on out of here? Because I don't want to be here too long. We had a 22-minute mark. Thanks, Ms. Phoenix. I appreciate it. We'll try to move a little bit more in that direction as time goes on. So, big up to Erica for teaching me about the UGC content. We're going to start trying to, get a little bit deeper into that space over time. Just got to find the right people. But I appreciate it. Your Taylor D says the grocery stores usually dictate the traffic in the entire commercial sector. Yeah, I've seen that. Right. Or I know one place where it's a Lowe's and an Office Max and a Target. And I don't know if the Target has a grocery in there. Because, some Targets, at least where I'm at, some Targets got groceries. Okay, Amor says baby products on WIC. Okay, so I didn't know. So again, all the people that make these particular baby products, Similac, all that, if we cut these programs, they're going to be impacted because they're producing the field of demand that's coming through these programs, right? So we got to kind of start thinking about, from a business standpoint, what business sectors are going to be negatively impacted if they cut these programs up. But big up to Amor. Yeah, GC, exactly. They already know groceries have very low margins. Historically, groceries, and especially the big chains, right? It's a store out there on the West Coast called Huron or whatever, forgot the name. They probably got big margins because they're doing white labeling and they put a big premium on it. But you're right, groceries are known to have really, really tight margins. So you're right, they got to drive as much revenue. Walmart can't withstand losing billions of dollars of revenue. They can't take that because their margins are already small. So you're 100% correct. Okay, big up to Miss Phoenix. Local farmers also accept and rely on SNAP too. So I didn't know that. So I appreciate that. Okay, so that look like that's going to be it. So just wanted to go ahead and roll it out there. We're going to see more headlines similar to this because a lot of people, like I say, they just rage baiting. And the internet allows people to do that. But I want to really encourage you to really start thinking your way through situations, because we're going to get a little bit deeper into the DeepSeek situation. But I want you to, that came about by people understanding and really people being trained to solve problems, not just do tasks with the hope of making money, but really realizing how can we creatively solve a problem and do what it takes to solve the problem. But it's a training that has to take place for people to be able to do that. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of people all over the world, but it's partly in the West. It's deeper than you just going to school, yada, yada, yada. Is actually solving their problems, because the difference between the Chinese, and even though a lot of Chinese do come over here, is a lot of Chinese not trying to figure out how they're going to run to America or run to the West. They in China trying to figure out how they're going to solve their problems. And so it's just a different way of looking at the world and a different way of taking responsibility on what's going on around you. And I think a lot of times when things happen, we get caught up in what's going on because we haven't really been taught how to think on how to actually solve the problem. So we just argue over stuff that really don't have nothing to do with the situation anyway. So that's all we're going to talk about. Hope you got some value from it. Stay safe and talk to y'all later.